guys! So I cannot believe I haven't filmed this video before, but I saw one of your comments a couple of weeks ago asking what actually happens when you stop Accutane. And yeah, I've got a lot to say about this, as you know, because I talk about Accutane and my experience a lot on this channel. So I thought I would do exactly that. I'd run you through what happened the day I stopped taking Accutane all the way through to about 6 months later. If you want any other updates, then yeah, stay tuned to this channel because I regularly talk about life after Accutane, and I've got a 1 year update, sorry, a 1 year after update and a 2 year after update as well, which I can link down below. But yeah, let's get into this. I'm guessing, like most of you who are on Accutane at the moment, stopping is like quite a scary feeling because you finally got to a place where you're happy with your skin and it's all kind of starting to really calm down and yeah, just feel a lot smoother. And yeah, for me, by the 6 month mark when I finished, I was definitely really happy with my skin. So yeah, the fear of coming off was big. But the day I actually stopped, nothing really happened whatsoever. I'd actually weaned myself off it slightly, not in like a massive way, but over the last, I think it was the last 2 weeks, I dropped down from taking 50 milligrams a day and started taking, I think it was 20, and yeah, and just ended the course a little bit longer than I was meant to. So rather than finish in 2 weeks, I finished in about a month, if that makes sense. So yeah, once I completely stopped, nothing crazy happened. My skin, in fact, actually started to feel a lot better. So for the most part, when I was on Accutane, my skin felt really smooth in the last few months and I was really happy with it. But there were problems with eczema. I did feel like my skin was super sensitive, super dry, and yeah, it just wasn't really a good base for makeup either. So I kind of gone from one extreme to another. Instead of it being like really textured and bumpy and oily, it had kind of gone the opposite, where the texture was just really dry and like makeup would just cling to the wrong areas. So I avoided wearing makeup. But once I stopped Accutane, I noticed that my skin was really starting to balance out. And in fact, I could start wearing makeup and it looked amazing. So like the really horrible dry scaly patches were starting to subside, like products were working a lot better, and in general I just was so much happier with my skin than when I was on the drug. And in fact this carried on for the entire month after I first finished, and I was over the moon. Like, it is still the best my skin has ever looked. I felt super glowy, and yeah, as I said, makeup just looked much better and lasted all day, because it was the first time I'd really got into the habit of yeah, putting on makeup, having it last all day, not having to blot, and not having to put excessive amounts of moisturizer on. So yeah, it was just kind of a win-win, and I was very happy. Then going into the second month after Accutane, and again, my skin still looked really good. It felt very poreless. It kind of had that look that a lot of people have after Accutane, and obviously the retinoid has like completely turned over your skin and it's, I don't know, it feels a lot thinner, but it does look really poreless. But this lasted probably, I want to say like 6 weeks after Accutane, and once I got into like mid second month, I noticed that I was starting to get tiny breakouts, like lots and lots of tiny little bumps underneath the skin, and these mostly were kind of collected like around like the beard area, where my cystic acne had been. And so as you can imagine, I really started to freak out. I was so upset. I was on holiday when this was going on, and I just thought, you know, is it the sun cream that I'm putting on? Is it something I'm eating? I just couldn't work it out, and I just was, yeah, so down, thinking about how long I'd been on Accutane and dreading having to maybe do it again. But this didn't really get much worse for that month, and things kind of just stayed the same. Like, acne wasn't like coming back and getting worse, but the sort of texture, the feeling of my skin really didn't feel great. But they were like skin coloured, so you couldn't actually really see them, and so to the naked eye, like if anyone else was looking at my face, they would never be able to tell. And yeah, I remember my boyfriend on holiday was like, there is no way anybody else could see that. But yeah, it just played on my mind, and I think it was more the fear of it coming back as opposed to yeah, actually having these small bumps. So then by about 3 months after Accutane, I noticed that my skin was definitely starting to get worse. And by this, I don't mean like full-on cystic acne. Like when I say worse, I'm not talking about like, yeah, how bad my skin gets. But I noticed that these little bumps were getting red in some areas. Like I noticed that some of them were becoming more inflamed and looked like actual spots. And this obviously, it was really upsetting. I didn't really know what to do, so I just started applying all the sort of skincare that I'd used previous. So things like salicylic acid, which I'd relied on like as a teenager and into like my early 20s, that have worked really well for those small bumps. So yeah, I started using tons of products like that, and if anything, I was just making life a lot worse. I started to get really red around my nose, really red around my mouth. Like my skin was sensitive. It had been on Accutane obviously for 6 months, so skin was super sensitive, and I was trying to combat all these little spots, and the combination was just not going well, and I was starting to get really down about it. And so I just decided to pull back and decided, this isn't working. It's not worth ruining the rest of my skin over this sort of area of my face. So I decided a different plan of action was needed. I decided to go back to just having a really simple skincare routine that had worked so well for me on Accutane and had worked so well like the month after. So just using things like Cetaphil products, my Avene moisturizer, and not applying any kind of topical retinoids or chemical exfoliants or just anything that could slightly irritate my skin. I decided to rule out, which definitely helped because my skin felt a lot balanced, and I started to implement other things that I was sort of testing. For example, I knew that when I was eating a lot of sugar, I could tell that there was a worsening in my skin. So I just thought I'd, test this out and pull back on the amount of sugar and really looking after like my blood sugar levels. Doing this absolutely helped. I saw a massive difference in my skin after about sort of 2, maybe even 3 weeks, and these little bumps basically went. And I think there is 2 reasons for that. One, obviously, I was looking after my hormonal health, not spiking my blood sugars, and also I feel like my skin was probably adjusting. So I really believe that lots of us after Accutane do start to see these little bumps in our skin, and if I'm being honest, it's probably our sebaceous glands readjusting to oil production again. So they might get a little bit inflamed and you might see a bit of a reaction. But in my opinion, things just started to level out. My skin was neither oily nor really dry, and yeah, the improvement in the texture just started to happen. So whether I could have done all those things and my skin would have just reacted the same, or maybe it did really help to just pull back on my skincare and also make sure I was eating correctly for my hormonal health. I think the next big difference in my skin happened at about 6 months after, because at 6 months after is really when I started to see like all redness start to really subside. For me, that was the biggest issue. It was just always looking quite tomatoey red, regardless of what the weather was like. I just had like a red glow to my skin. And at 6 months, that's when that started to subside as well. So in general, 6 months, my skin, my complexion, it was just looking a lot better. I really feel at that point as well, I kind of realized my skin wasn't gonna relapse and break out again, not at that point anyway, that these little bumps had just been a phase and my skin was starting to look a lot better. And yeah, I was really happy with it. In terms of side effects, so I think that's also something people are really interested in. So for me, the biggest side effects whilst I was on Accutane, God, there was quite a few, but nosebleeds definitely was something that stood out. I used to get those all the time. Eczema, I would get eczema particularly on my face, and I would get it on my arms. Yeah, eczema was definitely an issue. Headaches, muscle ache and joint pain, that was huge, definitely in my back the most. Yeah, I would say there was some sort of hair thinning as well. Not that I really noticed it because my hair is really thick, like I'm very lucky in that respect. But I did notice that lots of it was coming out when I was like washing my hair, which was only once a week. When you're on Accutane, you just hardly ever need to wash your hair. But yeah, if I was brushing it, whatever, I did notice that I was shedding quite a bit. So yeah, they were like the main side effects for me. And obviously my lips, I feel like everyone goes through that. My lips didn't feel as bad as some people's. I don't know if it's because I was so on it from day one. I would always be drinking out of a straw. I'd always be applying lip balm. I had Dr. Dan's Corti Balm, which is hydrocortisone. Like I was so prepared for that side effect that I think I kind of came through that okay. So in terms of the first side effect, which is the nosebleeds, they lasted for ages. So I remember getting those, I think the last one I had was about 7 or 8 months after finishing Accutane. Like they just came round at really unexpected times, like in the middle of the night when I was asleep, or I had one when I was at a water park in the summer. I had another when I was just out for a walk one day. Like I couldn't predict when they would happen. But eventually they subsided, and yeah, as I said, 9-month mark, I think at the very latest was when they subsided. So the achy muscles and joint pain, this seemed to ease up very quickly after. So for about a month after, I still felt a bit achy, but after say about month 3, I felt very much like myself again. Yeah, no aches and pains whatsoever, and still to this day, I've never had anything like that again, so that's great. Headaches, oh God, yeah, they did hang around for a little bit longer than I imagined. I think they sort of hung around for maybe like 3, maximum 5 months. I think I had a few after the 3-month mark, but let's be honest, it might not have been Accutane. I couldn't really say it was definitely that, but I never used to get headaches before Accutane. And yeah, when I was on the drug, I definitely got them quite regularly. And yeah, I would say, yeah, 3 or 4 months after, they would still be there. Hair thinning. So I would say The first couple of months when I was on the drug is when I really noticed like that my hair was shedding. But I put lots of things in place, like lots of different hair care routines, lots of hair treatments and oils. I found a really great product from Kiehl's, this hair elixir, which I've talked about quite a lot over on Instagram. It was really good for the roots. So yeah, it just felt like my it just felt like my hair was like really nourished and started to really regrow quite quickly. So yeah, I would say after sort of 2 or 3 months of being on Accutane, I noticed my hair was definitely back to its old self. And yeah, I'm so happy about that. I guess for the most part, because you're not having the oils from your scalp into your hair, it just feels a lot more brittle and yeah, just not as strong. So yeah, definitely 3 months after is when we were kind of back to it. Like hair was starting to get oily again, having to wash it more regularly, and it did feel healthier. And my lips, they recovered really quickly. I'm still obsessed with lip balm. I still will not go out without a lip balm. I don't know why. I feel like ever since Accutane, it's this thing where you just feel like you can't be more than like, I don't know, 5 meters away from a lip balm. But yeah, I think that's gonna be with me forever. I felt like my lips were completely fine a few weeks after Accutane. So yeah, that side effect completely went really quickly. So that is what happened after I stopped Accutane. If you've got any questions, obviously just drop me a comment below. But if you wanna find out all the things I wish I knew before starting Accutane, then I have an entire playlist set up and ready to go. So click the link below and I will see you over there.